I thought I was paying my father's medical bills when, in reality, I was giving money to my stepsister. Now my father thinks I own a house and have a healthy heart after my lawsuit. I'm 28 years old. My father remarried when I was 12. After my mother passed away, his new wife came into the picture with her daughter Laura, who was 8 at the time. You could say she quickly became my father's favorite child, for reasons I never really understood. 2 years ago, my stepmother was diagnosed with breast cancer. Laura said the hospitals were too traumatic for her and basically disappeared, leaving my father to handle everything on his own. I had always gotten along well with my stepmother, so I stepped in and took full responsibility. I used my vacation days to take her to chemotherapy and helped with shopping, cleaning, and cooking. For the first time in years, my dad seemed genuinely grateful. He told me how proud he was of me. After my stepmother's recovery, Dad started talking about his own health issues and getting checkups. Then about 18 months ago, he called me in a panic, saying he had been diagnosed with a serious heart condition. He told me he needed immediate surgery and expensive ongoing treatment. His insurance would cover most of it, but there would still be significant out-of-pocket costs he couldn't afford. He sounded genuinely scared, terrified of skipping treatments because of the cost. I offered to help. At that time, I had about $15,000 saved. When I told him I'd cover the expenses, he cried on the phone, thanking me over and over, saying he didn't deserve a son like me. For the next 8 months, I sent him money regularly. First $3,000 for the surgery, then $200 for tests, $800 for medications, and another $2,000 for additional procedures. Each time, he sent me what looked like medical bills and insurance statements, thanking me profusely. It wasn't money I could easily spare, but it felt good knowing I was helping to save my dad's life. In total, I ended up giving him almost $10,000. Last December, I decided to surprise them with a Christmas visit. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a brand new luxury SUV with temporary plates. It was an early Christmas gift for Laura because, apparently, her old car wasn't good enough anymore. Laura was dressed in designer clothes, looking like she was living a life way beyond her means. At first, I thought maybe she had a wealthy boyfriend, but that wasn't the case. It became obvious there was only one explanation. My father was funding her lifestyle. If my dad was supposedly struggling with medical bills, how could he possibly afford to buy Laura a new car, expensive clothes, and jewelry? The next morning, I confronted him. At first, he denied everything, but eventually, he broke down and admitted the truth. There was never a serious heart condition. He had only had a routine EKG that showed a minor irregularity, which led to a follow-up with a cardiologist who confirmed everything was normal. The medical bills he had sent me were fabricated using old receipts from my stepmother's cancer treatment. The money I thought was saving my father's life had actually gone directly to Laura to fund her lifestyle. The car, the clothes, the jewelry, even vacations I had no idea about. When I demanded to know why, his explanation made everything worse. Laura had been threatening to cut off contact with him unless he gave her a generous allowance. She told him her life was miserable and that his income wasn't enough to give her the things she wanted. My dad said he felt trapped. He couldn't bear the thought of losing Laura. And since I was more responsible, he figured I'd be willing to help if I believed it was a medical emergency. I demanded that every penny be returned to me immediately, plus interest, plus what I considered a fee for not suing him until he had a real heart attack. He told me it wasn't possible because the money was already gone and Laura had no savings. I gave him 30 days to reimburse me or I'd take legal action and cut off all contact. Laura overheard our argument and dared to act as if I were the one being unreasonable. She told me the money was gone and would most likely never be recovered. Then she said I should just get over it and that if anything I should feel good knowing it had been put to use, rather than just sitting in my bank account. To her it was extra money. To me it was the savings I'd been building to one day buy a house or support myself in case I lost my job. That day I walked out and cut off all contact. My father reached out a few times, sometimes apologizing, other times justifying what he had done, but he never once attempted to pay me back. After waiting a reasonable amount of time, I finally contacted a lawyer. Honestly, I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe some part of me thought my dad would come to his senses and finally do the right thing. But just 3 days ago, Dad called me again. This time, he really was in the hospital. He'd had a heart attack and now needed bypass surgery. How do I know my dad's condition is real this time? Because I went to the hospital, asked for his room, and there he was. When I walked in and he saw me, I immediately turned around and left. I didn't stay long because I had already gotten the confirmation I needed. For a brief moment, I saw the look of happiness on his face, probably thinking I was there to pay his bills. But that wasn't why I went. I only wanted to know if this condition was real. I wanted to know if karma had finally caught up with him. Later, I spoke with my stepmother, and we had a very interesting conversation. When she called Laura about the heart attack, Laura said she was too busy to visit and that they should work out their own issues since they had chosen not to support her anymore. She even had the nerve to say that the heart attack was probably caused by the stress of being bad parents. Honestly, I completely agree. Apparently, my lawsuit against my father had caused him to finally stop giving Laura money. And during my talk with my stepmother, I found out something else. She had no idea about the money I had given to my dad during his fake medical emergency. She was shocked when I told her. Now my father is facing real medical bills, and I know he won't be able to pay them. He has no savings, his credit cards are maxed out, and according to my stepmother, they could even lose their house because of a second mortgage taken out for Laura's expenses. Part of me is worried about continuing with the lawsuit against him. If he survives the surgery, I'll be one of his creditors. But another part of me wonders if there's even more I can sue for. I don't feel sorry for a father who used a fake medical condition to steal from his son just to give money to his stepdaughter. Right now, I just want his surgery to be successful, because I need him alive to pay back his debts. Eventually, my stepmother showed me their financial situation. It was worse than I expected. Their bank accounts and credit cards were maxed out. They were already behind on payments for their second mortgage, and if things continued, they'd lose the house within months, even without factoring in the hospital bills. But what shocked me the most were the text messages Laura had sent my dad. He had saved many of them, and they were brutal. She was constantly demanding money, sometimes subtly hinting, other times outright threatening to cut off all emotional contact if she wasn't given cash. It was pure blackmail. My stepmother apparently didn't know much about it, or at least she claimed she didn't. Knowing her, I'm inclined to believe she really didn't. Not long after, I got a text message from my father. It was both an admission and an apology. He admitted that he had betrayed my trust, that lying about the medical bills was not only wrong but also theft. He said seeing Laura's true personality had forced him to reconsider many things. He told me that my decision to cut him off after discovering the truth made him realize just how much he had taken my help for granted. He confessed that he had been trying to find a way to pay me back, even little by little. But with his financial situation, it wasn't possible. Still, he promised that if he recovered, paying me back would be his very first priority. Of course, those words didn't erase the pain. Nothing ever could. But at least it was the first time he admitted out loud what he had done to me. At this point, I'm honestly tempted to just pay his medical bills so he can survive, and then sue him for everything. From the way the doctors were talking, it almost sounded like they were preparing to let him go rather than fight to save his life. A part of me even thought about signing the papers if that was the case. But then I remembered he still owes me money, and that thought changed everything. From my conversation with my stepmother, I learned that she's standing by him right now only because he's on the edge of death. But once the situation is resolved, she plans on filing for divorce. And I get it. She probably feels as if he passes, she might at least be left with something. Though honestly, with all the debt he has, I doubt she'll be left with much. I think the real reason she's staying is because despite everything, she still feels a little sorry for him. As for me, I'm not going to help my father with the bills. My lawsuit against him is still pending. My stepmother mentioned she's trying to figure out a way to gather the money. Since, based on my father's financial statements, the hospital won't be willing to work out a deal later. Thankfully, my father's surgery went well. The doctors were optimistic about his recovery and said that as long as he followed the care plan and didn't overexert himself, he had a good chance of returning to a relatively normal life. That was a huge relief, because to be honest, if the surgery had gone badly, that would have meant goodbye to any chance of me getting my money back. I even asked my stepmother if recovery included the ability to pay off debts. She told me she hadn't asked the doctors that. Apparently, that's not a valid medical question. Who would have thought? But of course, nothing with this family is ever drama-free. It turns out Laura practically wanted to kill my father before he could even pay me back. When she found out that her mom had helped raise money for his surgery, she immediately wanted to know why none of it had been set aside for her. She showed up at the hospital unannounced, and no, it wasn't to see Dad. It was to confront her mother and demand money for herself. I wasn't there at the time, so I can't tell you the exact details, but from what I heard, it was pure chaos. The kind of scandal you'd expect from someone who thinks the world owes them everything. Laura complained that there was money for surgery but none for her, that it wasn't fair they had money for some things, but never when she needed something. Eventually, security was called. She refused to leave at first. Then, after screaming, crying, even biting, and letting out what sounded like a war cry, she was finally escorted out. Before leaving, she shouted at my stepmother that if she didn't see any money by the end of the week, she wanted nothing to do with either of us ever again. I wish that had been the end of it. But of course, it wasn't. 2 days later, she called me directly, convinced that the money had come from my pocket. Poor fool. And honestly, I don't blame her for assuming I was the one who had bailed my dad out before. She was furious, screaming like she had just stubbed her toe on the edge of the bed. She accused me of manipulating the whole situation just to make her look bad. According to her, I had swooped in with my money to prove that I was the better child. Then she called me a pathetic loser, saying I had to buy love because I was too boring to earn it naturally. But the most absurd thing she said, that she deserved the money more than our dad because she brought more joy to the family, and that financing her lifestyle was apparently more important than saving his life. At that point, I hung up. I didn't even bother to clarify that it wasn't me who paid for the surgery. Honestly, I liked the idea of letting her believe it. But that didn't stop her. She left voicemail after voicemail, each one more unhinged than the last. She threatened to sue me for alienation of affection, and then went so far as to accuse me of making a move on her, saying she was going to report me to the police. You'd have to be unbelievably stupid to leave proof of a false accusation in a voicemail. And she did exactly that. So yes, I've already filed a police report for harassment and threats, with the evidence my stepsister so kindly handed over. Her mother already knows about everything, and honestly, she seems to be in good spirits about it. She's just waiting for my father to recover a little before moving forward with the divorce. She told me straight up that her decision is final. Once he's stable, she's done. And honestly, I don't blame her one bit. My lawyer told me that we'll soon have the first hearing for my father's debt, and the news will be released once it's official. Honestly, I don't care if his heart is weak. It wasn't too weak when he was paying for my stepsister Laura's spoiled whims, acting like she was royalty while showing the intelligence of a rock. Back then, his heart was beating just fine, even while he binged on junk food. Health-wise, my father is doing better now, but he's been taking hits from every direction. My own mental health may not be perfect right now, but my heart is strong, and I don't have blocked arteries. We already have a judge's order, requiring him to pay back the $1,000 he stole from me, plus $8,000 in interest, damages, and compensation for the deception. This agreement was made so I wouldn't pursue further legal action. If he pays on time, which I honestly don't expect, I'll end up with more money than if I had simply invested it. If he doesn't, the payment plan includes late payment interest, so either way I win. On top of that, my stepmother has officially served him with divorce papers. Right after the judge's ruling, my dad realized that if the lawsuit didn't kill him, the divorce wouldn't be much easier. For now, he's hanging in there trying to look as strong as an oak tree. Now let's turn to Laura, because things had been moving quickly for her as well. It turns out her boyfriend finally woke up and realized that if my dad wasn't paying her bills anymore, it would be on him. When Laura refused to pay her share of the next month's rent, her boyfriend kicked her out. That was a major blow to her ego since she had always believed someone else would bankroll her lifestyle. Well, the show is over, because no one wants to play along anymore. I suspect that my police complaint against her may have been the final trigger. The timing fits, but honestly, there were so many red flags in that relationship that it's hard to say I was fully responsible. My complaint didn't directly lead to much, but it did spark an investigation and some consequences. From what I've heard, Laura is now scrambling to find a place to stay. I don't know where she's sleeping. I know she's not with my stepmother, because my stepmother is still living with my dad until she can move out. I don't know Laura's friends, and she hasn't posted anything on social media that would give me a clue. What I do know is this. She lost her job. Someone may or may not have sent the audio recordings of her threats to her boss. That person may or may not have been me. Either way, they found out, and she was fired. And no, I don't feel bad about it. If you're going to manipulate people and make threats, then you have to accept the consequences. That means losing your job, losing your home, getting dumped by your boyfriend, and dealing with all the fallout that comes with being a horrible person. I know some people might say revenge is wrong, but I refuse to let someone lie about me in such a serious way and get away with it. Next time, if she wants to make accusations, she'd better have something true. At this point, I'm seriously considering filing for a restraining order. I don't know if I qualify, but having one could protect me in case she tries anything else. My stepmother has also decided to cut off all contact with Laura, unless she agrees to get professional mental health help. When your own mother doesn't want anything to do with you, it means you've made more than just one or two mistakes. Laura has made plenty. I can tell it hurts my stepmother, but she admitted that continuing to enable Laura would only hurt everyone, including Laura herself. She's even started therapy to process the grief and guilt of cutting her daughter off, but deep down, she knows it's the right decision. The worst part is, I don't think all of this is entirely Laura's fault. My father has been enabling her behind my stepmother's back for years, and now he finds himself stuck with a monster fueled by his own whims. That's just one more reason my stepmother wanted a divorce. My relationship with my father is completely non-existent. And at this point, it's mutual. Not helping him with his surgery, suing him, and being the one who told my stepmother the truth. Something that pushed her closer to divorce has created a permanent rift between us. But honestly, his wife was going to find out sooner or later. She wasn't going to give him money after all the lies, and he deserved that lawsuit. Besides, the rift between us already existed on my side, so none of this really changes anything for me. Since my stepmother has moved out of my father's house, I know Laura has moved in there. My stepmother told me herself. And as the saying goes, misery loves company. I probably butchered that phrase, but you get the point. Honestly, I'd love to be a fly on the wall just to see how that coexistence is working out between them. Now, about my stepmother's divorce. Technically, she isn't my stepmother anymore. But since we're still close and she's been a better parental figure than my father ever was, I'll keep calling her that. Despite the divorce, we have no plans to end our bond. I'm not about to cut important people out of my life just because of a legal document. As expected, there wasn't much to divide in the divorce. The good news is that she was able to walk away with her savings intact, along with reimbursement for the money she spent on her surgery. She had used her own money to pay for it initially, out of pity for my father, even though he was practically dying at the time. I'll admit, she has a bigger heart than I do, because I never could have done that. In other news, my father's house has been sold. With that money, he paid back the debt he owed me. Every last cent. That officially severs any emotional, legal, or financial ties between us. From what I've heard, he's now living in a small rental apartment. And no, Laura isn't living with him, and she's not with her mother either. What I know is only rumor at this point. But here's what I've heard. Apparently, Laura has gotten a new job, is living with another man, and has even started paying my father back. Personally, I find that hard to believe, but maybe parts of it are true. If you want to place bets, I'll tell you mine. She's probably working as a stripper. Her boyfriend is her pimp, and my father is pocketing the money from her private dances. As for my relationship with my father, it's completely gone. We're separated by karma. To me, this is justice, because he stole from me with lies, and now he's paying the price. To him, I'm an inconsiderate son. Honestly, I don't care. He doesn't want a relationship with me, and that's fine. The only good thing he's given me in a long time is my stepmother, who's now free of him, but still part of my life. I have a feeling this will be my last update, because with my money back in my account, and zero chance of me ever giving my father another cent, this drama is finally over. I'm not naive enough to think he'll try to rebuild a relationship, and even if he does, his demands will fall on deaf ears. Some people might say I should forgive my father just because he's my dad, but I'm not going to grovel for someone who betrayed me. That might be your style, but it isn't mine. If you want to throw away your dignity, that's your choice. As for me, I won't trip over the same stone twice.